The Rebel Capitalist Show.
So many people see their portfolio going up 10,000% because they own Shibu Inu or something, or even coal or gold or oil. And they think that they're getting rich, but they forget that if the economy is producing fewer goods and services, if you have access to less stuff, then you're really not getting richer, you're getting poorer. And what happens if those high energy prices not only reduce the amount of goods and services, but have power outages that come along with it? That's going to affect the rich, the wealthy, the poor, and the middle class.
Absolutely agree. We wrote a piece not that long ago called "One Flew Over the Prepper's Nest," and we confessed that in fact the Doomberg team consists of people who have a bit of a preparedness mindset. I think about, yeah, I don't want to be labeled as a domestic terrorist, but I do
it's hard
want
not to in today's day and age.
Yeah, I view so the just-in-time inventory system is in the process of collapsing.
Yeah.
And since the places from whom we procure the things we need to run our home factories aren't keeping sufficient inventory to ensure against a stock out, we do that in our homes. We're not hoarders, we're not crazy, but we have a thoughtful working capital strategy for our home factories. Our factories exist to ensure the health and well-being of our family. There's 4 inputs at most homes. It's natural gas, it's water, it's electricity, and it's goods and services. There are 2 outputs, which is garbage and sewer. And we have to have a plan for losing 1, 2, 3, or all 6 of those things. And for how long are we willing to plan to lose those things? And if you treat your home as a factory, and then you just study the working capital needs of your home, we advised in that piece, like the easiest thing you can do is just double the working capital of all of your consumables. And that'll get you through most of any potential issues that might arise.
That's a great way to look at it. What a neat analytical way. What was the name of that post?
One Flew Over the Prepper's Nest. It was a couple of weeks ago. And we detail, look, if you want the set it and forget it trade, you can buy some Mountain House food, 6-month supply, a couple of grand, leave it in the basement. It's good for 30 years. I happen to have, whole house generator and a few other spares. And actually, we had a local emergency last year, and I was giving out generators to neighbors and friends, lending them out. Being able to help your neighbors and friends in time of need is one of the driving factors for us. We hosted several people in our home because of the local emergency. We had plenty of food and a few drinks, which is always helpful for people when they're at a time of stress. And but we were able to do that because our friends know that we love them enough to think not only for ourselves, but for them. And it's okay to be independently prepared for things and to see your family through emergencies. And yes, I recognize it's expensive. And for many people in the economy, they have other priorities. There are ways to do this on a budget. There's lots of great YouTube channels that describe it. But the vast majority of people don't even think about it. They just accept that when they turn the tap, water comes on. This is a rare thing. I know where the local water sources are that surround my home and what I would do in a scenario where the city water didn't work anymore and I still had to flush some toilets. Most people couldn't go 2 or 3 days losing all 6 of those things. I think I could comfortably go 30. I don't want to go much more than 30 because in a world where I have to, that's probably not worth living in at that point. But this is a thought, like I view your home as a factory. What are your working capital needs? What are your inflows? What are your products? What are your waste products? How do you manage them? If garbage, when we had a dry run with that, with the thing we won't name, the shutdown of the economy, the garbage stopped coming. The garbage man stopped coming to our neighborhood for 3 weeks, and garbage was piling up, and we had a plan for that.
Let's for a moment go back to what you were saying. I want to try to connect some dots when you were talking about OPEC. I'm sorry for jumping around here.
It's your show.
But when you were describing the fact that OPEC in the future may have quite a bit more leverage, what I was thinking about is the petrodollar.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say everyone has their own opinion on Afghanistan. I think it was pretty obvious it was a debacle. And if I'm OPEC and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I did this deal with the United States where the bargain is they offer me military and I price my oil in dollars to give artificial demand for the dollar. And we know the benefits that that gives the United States. But if I look at Afghanistan, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. I don't know if the United States can uphold their end of the bargain. And therefore, I might maybe do a military deal with Russia, which is what we saw from Saudi Arabia. And therefore, maybe in the future, they're pricing more of their oil in rubles, at least the oil that could be going to Russia, if that's the process. So when you're talking about them having more pricing power as well, how do you think that works with the petrodollar? Do you think that they could be pricing more of their oil because they have so much leverage in other currencies, and therefore that creates less global demand for the dollar?
I'll give you a slightly different view. And not to go too far down the rabbit hole of paper market price suppression of precious metals. But if you assume that the price of gold is being suppressed in the paper market, who are the two largest acquirers of gold in the past 4 or 5 years? It's Russia and China.
Right.
And they're sort of fading what we're doing in the West. So we're crimping our own supply. They're investing. They now help, Putin holds all the cards in Western Europe today. The geopolitical game has never been easier for him. And believe me, we write these things not with any glee. We write these things because we would prefer it were a different way. And so
wake people up, just like I'm trying to wake people up.
So if you think there's a great debt jubilee coming, which inevitably there sort of has to be, how much gold you own might be important for that negotiation when the Great Reset happens.
Yeah.
And so, if the petrodollar goes away, it's going to be replaced with something. It's probably going to be replaced with a global currency. And there's going to be a Great Reset. And how much debt you owe and how much gold you own are probably going to be two important inputs into the great summit that occurs with all of the global powers when the new currency rules are set. And so if you look at what Russia and China have been doing, but neither of them went to this conference, and they're setting about preparing their own economies, optimizing for themselves. And we could scream about it, and we can say, Russia this and China that, and you're just propaganda, and you're a denier of this, and you're a denier of that. Our sort of yelling at each other is not going to stop Vladimir Putin or Xi from doing the things that are in the interests of their own people. And who could blame them? Who owns all the cards today? All the manufacturing's in China. They could shut down magnesium production, which will stop the production of aluminum, which will stop the production of cars in the Western world tomorrow. Who gave them that power? We did, because we didn't like magnesium smelters in our own geography, sort of not in my backyard syndrome taken to the extreme. So I don't worry too much about the petrodollar per se. I think sort of one level deeper, which is the Great Reset, which everyone knows is coming, has to come, George. We are living a giant Ponzi economy. And who's buying gold while we're suppressing it? What happens when you suppress the price of something? The people that know the price is being suppressed accumulate it. And that's what's happening with Russia and China.
Do you think there could be an overlap with the ESG movement with the gold miners? So we've seen that really impact the supply or capex in oil or coal, et cetera. But do you think it could spill over to the gold miners? And I'm getting this idea from Russell Napier in his last conversation he had with my good buddy Eric Townsend on Macro Voices. And
Yes.
This was his idea. I thought it was very interesting.
Another mutual friend, Cuppy, has the same thought, which is in the early stages of commodity super cycles, which I'm not calling that we're having one, but sure feels like we're having one. One of the gasoline that's poured on the fire is the spiraling price of things like diesel and tires and tractors and dump trucks and excavators and heavy equipment, and a shortage of labor because the inflation is biting you. These things directly impact the mine and the marginal cost of production. Now, the price of something like gold is different than the price of something like coke and coal or oil, because those things tend to be consumed in short order. The price of gold isn't necessarily directly tied to the marginal cost of production of the gold miner, because there's a lot of supply. It doesn't get consumed. That's the whole point of gold. But if you think one step down, like silver is both a sort of, at least historically, money and also an industrial good. Just to go back to the insanity of yelling at each other about a coal mine when in reality it's for making steel. Most sort of people don't realize that without silver you can't make solar panels.
Right.
There's an enormous amount of silver in each of these panels. I happen to be a big believer in solar. I have solar in my home. One of my largest personal investment is in the solar space. But you can't have solar panels without silver. And so, to the extent that the inflationary pressures we're seeing feed the marginal cost of production for commodities that get consumed, that can be a real accelerant to the transitory inflation.
And less capital going into the production of new gold, because it's seen as a dirty way, or the process itself, gold mining, is considered dirty by the ESG types.
Well, the strategies, one of the strategies of some of the ESG types, I don't want to put everybody in the same bucket, is to oppose all production at every opportunity.
Right.
And and don't get me wrong, they've done a lot of good in the Western world. You can build these facilities, and they operate in a way that is way cleaner and way more responsible than what you see in other parts of the world. When your competitor in China has zero water treatment at their production facility, it's hard for you to compete on price. And I know from personal experience in my old life, the hypocritical nature of the big American B2C companies who will source everything they can on price and buy from these Chinese producers who have no environmental, policy whatsoever and are polluting the rivers locally. And they use those as price comps for the Western producers. That happens all the time, George. It's if people knew, and I won't name the brands, but the big name brands in the West, the B2C goods, all the things you buy, their procurement departments hammer Western producers on price because they have a comp from, let's just say, a producer in China that has zero environmental protocols at their facility. And if I have to treat every ounce of water that leaves my facility, absolutely I should, but then I'm expected to compete on price with a low-cost producer in China who doesn't. And then to see these exact same brands go out into the market and brag about their ESG, and they're all at the cocktail parties at this latest conference. The hypocrisy is just amazing. And so, it's so frustrating to know what actually goes on, and then to watch the news. That disparity is very frustrating.
Yeah.